values of the F score here, and then you read for the multiple regressions analysis, are you going to read the R square or adjusted R square value? Hello? Why so quiet? When you're reading the multiple regression analysis, are you going to read the R square or adjusted R square?
Adjusted R square.
Yeah, that's correct. You have to read adjusted R square when reading the multiple regressions analysis result. Okay, and in this case, can anyone interpret the result for me for the multiple regression analysis here? Dear Cindy, can you try?
So 3 of them, like powerlessness, social isolation, and COVID-19 anxiety, is P of T value is less than 0.05. So is this rejected? And then no, I mean, like, so we have to, oh yeah, so is this, for this one, is rejected, right? And then for the social anxiety, P score is more than 0.05. And then we have to look at the, oh no, we have to look at the P score for F value first, right? And then we have to look at the parameter estimated.
Yes. Yeah, so
okay.
We have to start the P value of the F first.
Okay, so
the F score.
Yeah, the P score of F value is less than 0.05. So so it is rejected, right?
So you have, in this case you can say the F score is 62.42 with the P values of less than 0.05, indicate that the beta is not equal to 0, right? So the null hypothesis is rejected, meaning that there is a significant effect of the powerlessness, social isolations, and COVID-19 anxiety on our student well-being, right? And then you read the adjusted R square. So the adjusted R square is 0.5868. What does that mean? What does it indicate? So this value indicate that powerlessness, social isolation, and COVID-19 anxiety can explain student well-being by 58.68%. And regarding the parameter estimate table, the p-values of powerlessness, social isolation, and COVID-19 anxiety significantly affect student well-being, right? Because the p-score of this, the p-value of this t-score are less than the cut-off points of 0.05. And then lastly, what you will need to read?
The social anxiety one, because it's more than 0.05, so meaning it does not affect student well-being.
Yeah, and what else that you will need to interpret?
So the standardized estimates of social anxiety Oh,
The highest.
the powerlessness, right?
Yeah.
So the standardized estimate of powerlessness is the highest among those of the 4 factors. So this indicates that the powerlessness provide the highest influence on student well-being.
And in conclusion,
hypothesis one, is supported by the data.
fully support.
Partially support.
Yeah, so you have to make a conclusion too. So this is how you completely report or interpret the result. Okay, so you start with the F score and then the P values and then indicating that the beta is not equal to 0, right? The null hypothesis is rejected. What does that mean? And then you're moving on to read the adjusted R square and then the parameter estimate. And then you have to make a conclusion that hypothesis 1 is supported by the data, or hypothesis 1 is partially supported by the data, because in this case, not all independent variables affect student well-being, right? Social anxiety does not affect. There's no relationship between social anxiety and student well-being. So this hypothesis is partially supported by the data. Okay? Any question for this? If not, I am going to move to the next hypothesis. When you're using the independent sample t-test, this is how you would see the table. So when you're reading the independent sample t-test, in this case, we are testing about the male and female have different social isolations. So what you would need to look at first, firstly, what table you will need to look at to read? Equality of variance. Great, equality of variance. So you have to look at the F score and the P values, right? In this case, the F score is 1.06 with the P value of more than 0.05, right? In this case. So what does that mean? When the P value of F score is more than 0.05, what does it mean?
We need to look at the unequal.
The P values is greater than 0.05. So it means that the variance of the two groups are not different. They are not different, right? Because the P value is greater than 0.05. It means that variance of two groups are not different. So the variance of the two groups are equal. They are no different because the P value is greater than 0.05, meaning that there's no difference. In other words, they are equal. So you have to looking at the P values of equal variance, which is 0. The T score is minus 0.89 and the P value of 0.3760, which means that it's greater than 0.05. So since the P value is more than 0.05, the null hypothesis is failed to reject it, meaning that the mean of the two groups are no different, right? You can see that the mean of the females and males there is 2.3013 and 2.4425, right? So in this case, you can make a conclusion that the mean score of the two groups are no different the mean score of the social isolation between males and female are not different. So this hypothesis is not supported by the data. Any question? So be careful when you're reading the equality of variances. So if the p-values of the f-score is greater than 0.05, if you remember, it means that there's no difference. The mean of the two groups are not different. When they are not different, it means they are equal. Okay? If it's less than 0.05, it means that the mean score of the two groups are different. They are unequal. So you have to read unequal. So read it carefully. Any question? Okay. If not, this is the other example that I would like to show you. I'm not sure you guys might face these problems when you're running one-way ANOVA. So you will see when the SAS program compute your data, you will see the category, the level, right? In this case, the hypothesis is that students at different age have different powerlessness. So age, they categorize into 4 groups: 18 to 20, 21 to 23, less than 18, and more than 23 years old. Okay, and you will see that the p-values of the f-score is less than 0.05. So it means that there is the difference of the mean score of the powerlessness among the group, but we don't know which group, right? So when you're running the one-way ANOVA, if there's some difference, because the p-value here is significant, it means that the group are different from others. So between these 4 groups, there are some different, but we don't know which group is different from which group. So we have to run the Duncan multiple rank test, right? So when you run the Duncan multiple rank test, sometimes if you remember, Duncan will group the subgroup for you. However, in this case, you will see that they only group the subgroup into like one category, which is A, grouping as A, and you cannot read the result like that because it means that all of the group are the same. In this case, the reason that Duncan group into one group A only because if you look at category number 2, you will see that the frequency or the N, the number of the population, the number of the sample here is only 4. It's very small amount of people here, so that's why they cannot group the category here. So in this case, if you find this problem, I would suggest that you merge this subgroup with other group. For example, in this case, it's less than 18 years old, right? So I think you can merge it with 18 to 20. So you have to merge it to make the sample size like bigger. So in this case, if you find this problem, so you have to merge it with the similar category. Okay, so you can merge it with 18 to 20 years old, and then run the test again, and then you can read the result. Any question for this? Anyone having this problem? No? Okay, if you are running into this kind of problem for the Duncan multiple rank test, so make sure that if the sample size, the frequency is very small, so the Duncan cannot group and it might cause some error like this one. You cannot read the result because all categories are grouped into group A, so you cannot see the difference. Okay, so you would have to merge two other group to make their sample size bigger, to make the n here bigger. Okay, so no question, right? Okay. Okay, so we are going to continue with the choosing the types of analysis. Okay, I think last week we stopped here. Okay. So in order to choose the appropriate statistical technique, you have to consider the type of question to be answered, the number of variables, either is univariate, the bivariate, or multivariate, as well as the scale of the measurement. Either you have the nominals, ordinals, or the intervals, or the ratio scales of measurement. And when you're using the parametric test, it means that when the data are intervals or ratio for the parametric test, and the sample size is large, and for parametric test is based on assumption that the data is drawn from a population with normal distribution. On the other hand, for the non-parametric statistic, when you're not having when you have other scale of measurement, for example, the nominals or ordinals data, and you don't have the means or standard deviations, so you only have the frequency, so you can use the non-parametric statistic. Therefore, when you are using the non-parametric test, you can test the distribution though, not the difference, or you cannot say which group is different from which group, because it's only test a hypothesis about the number frequency or about their distributions. Okay, so you can either use the non-parametric test to compare observed frequency with expected frequency, or the other term we use the chi-square goodness of fit to test that, to do that. So we learned about the chi-square goodness of fit already in our discussion class. However, some students, like 412, you have not learned about it. And here is the example of the chi-square test for goodness of fit. So in this hypothesis, we would like to see if there is a difference in numbers of respondents. The keyword is here. You will see that I'm not using the term student. I am using the word respondent, because when you're using non-parametric test, the result only explains the sample. The result is the representative of the sample, not the population. Okay, you have to keep in mind that for test, the result is used to explain only the sample, not the population. So we use the term respondent rather than student. Okay. So in this case, when we would like to see if there is a difference in number of respondents who have different class absence. So for example, the question asks about the class absent, right? And we would like to see the number different. So we can run the chi-square test for goodness of fit. And we talked about the way that you can run the chi-square already, or guideline. And here, how are you going to interpret it? So you have to understand that first, in the perfect world, if you would like to see the normal distribution, so you would have to calculate what the normal distribution would look like, right? The expected frequency. If you remember the chi-square test for goodness of fit, compare the observed frequency with expected frequency. So observed frequency means the thing that we get from the data. Here is the observed frequency. The expected frequency you would have to calculate yourself. So how to calculate the expected frequency? So you have to look at the total number of the respondents. Here in this case, there are 225 respondents completing the survey, right? And then you have to look at the categories here. How many categories you have? 3, right? So if you divide by, so you have to divide the number of categories by the total populations, then you will get 75. So the expected frequency would be 75 each. This is in the perfect world, right? So you would expect to see that there will be 75 respondents in each category. However, in reality, that is not always possible. That is not possible, right? So we run the chi-square test in order to see if there is a difference in number. So when running the chi-square test, it will generate the chi-square score and the p-value of the chi-square. In this case, what you will need to interpret. So you have to see the chi-square values and its p-value. So the chi-square score is 68.987 with the p-values of less than 0.05. So it indicates that, the hypothesis is that there is a difference in number of respondents who have different work absent, right? So if the p-value is less than 0.05, it means that there is a difference in number. So the null hypothesis is rejected. So you can conclude that there is a difference in number of respondents who have different work absent. Can you see which group? Can you explain which group is different from which group in chi-square test?
No.
No, yeah, you cannot tell which group is different from which group. You can only say, you can conclude that there is a difference in number of respondents who have different work absent. So this hypothesis is supported by the data. That's it, okay? And when you would like to test the difference of frequency among groups, so you have the cross tabulation table, right? So you would like to see the difference of frequency among group, more than 2 groups. So in this case, you can use the goodness of the chi-square for association. Goodness of associate. Oh, sorry. It should be chi-square for association. So for example, you would like to see the number of if different among groups. So how many times did you absent? This example is about the work absent and having the extra job. So your hypothesis is that respondent, again, we use the term respondent rather than students or employees, something like that. So we use the term respondents who have and do not have extra job, have different class absent. And then you run the test, then you will get the result like that. So when reading the chi-square for association, you have to read the sizing of the contingency table. For example, you read the row by column, the number of row by the number of column. So in this case, this is the 3 by 2 contingency table, and then you would have to calculate the smallest expected code to see if the result is valid or not. So you have to calculate the smallest expected code by using the lowest frequency. In this case, the lowest frequency here by the column is 28, and by row is 48, right? So you time 28 by 48 and divide by the total number of respondents, and you get 5.97. So it's more than 5. So that means that the result is valid. Then you look at the chi-square score, which is 7.0217 with the p-values of less than 0.05. So the null hypothesis is rejected. It means that respondents who have and do not have extra job have different class absent. Okay. So we have completed our statistic used to test the hypothesis. Are there any other analysis requires or any questions? Any question, guys? Hello? You still with me?
Yes, have.
Yes, you have question or you still with me?
Yes, I stay with you.
Thank you. Okay, now I am going to talk about the presentations and your assignment number 10 that is due on September 16 next week. So as you know that you would have to submit your PowerPoint presentation, the final presentation and assignment number 10 to LMS on September 16, 2020 by 11:30 p.m. Okay. I will post assignment number 10 today, and I will show you how to complete assignment number 10. Don't worry about that. And if you are absent on the presentation, on the presentation day, we will be doing the quiz too. Okay. The quiz is similar to the presentation of assignment number 7. In assignment number 7, when you present it to me, you read the descriptive information and sample size or cross tabulation. However, in the quiz, you are going to read the hypothesis testing table. Okay, so you are randomly assigned to read the hypothesis testing table. Make sure that you understand how to read all of the tables. Okay, and you would have to submit the report on LMS too. You have to submit it to LMS on September 25. So I would suggest that you present your research project first, and then you revise your research report before submitting it. Because I think not many groups that have the presentation on the 25th of September. So I would suggest that after the presentation, you revise your report before handing it in. Okay. And if you remember, here is the format of how you would do your slide presentation. So you would have to start with the cover page, telling about your group, your research, okay, your section, your group, and then your research. And slide number 2 is your main research problems, okay. And slide number 3 is your conceptual framework. So make sure that you use the revised versions, or you use the updated version that I checked. Okay, when you go to assignment number 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, you use the most updated one. Slide number 4 is your research hypothesis. So if your group have 22, just put like 22 hypotheses there. It's about your group hypothesis. Okay, slide number 5 is about your methodology. What methodology are you using? Okay, slide slide number 6 to 8, only 3 slides allow for sample profiles table, as well as the descriptive information table. We allow you to have only 3 slides for that. So sample profile table, you have 3 slides, so you have to put all tables that related to sample profiles in 3 slides, as well as the descriptive information. And make sure that for all data analyzed, either sample profiles, descriptive information, hypothesis testing, you put only SAS tables, not any interpretation. Highlight on the figures, you can do that. However, you're not allowed to put any interpretation. No explanation at all. Only SAS tables. Okay, slide number 12, contingency table. This is from your cross-tabulation analysis, not the chi-square one. The cross-tab analysis that you did on your assignment number 7. Okay, and then from slide 13, the list of your hypothesis, the stat design, and responsible person, which is your assignment number 8. Excuse me. Make sure that you put the updated and the revised versions of your assignment number 8, the one that I already revised or the one that I suggest you to revise. Okay? And then slide 14, you put the SAS result for hypothesis. So, if you have 22 hypotheses, you can have 22 slides. So, for example, for the hypothesis testing slide from slide number 14 and onwards, you have to put the hypothesis number and the statement. You have to put on the top of each slide. Okay, for example, slide number 14, you are going to present the hypothesis number 1, right? So you put hypothesis 1, powerlessness, social isolation, social anxiety, and COVID-19 anxiety affect student well-being. And then you put the table that related to that hypothesis testing. In this case, multiple regression table, right? So you put all of the multiple regression table there. So each hypothesis must be put in 1 slide only. So hypothesis 1, 1 slide. Hypothesis 2, 1 slide. Hypothesis 3, 1 slide. So each hypothesis you only allow to have 1 slide. Okay, so you do that until the last hypothesis about the chi-square. Your last hypothesis should be about the chi-square, either the good net of fit or association. It depends on your assignment number 8. And then slide number XX, after you finish the chi-square, slide number XX would be your conclusion. So you have to make a conclusion. So for the conclusions, I will talk about it in assignment number 10, conclusion and recommendations. So any question about that? About your slide presentation? No?
Do you have example for the slide?
No. Sorry. Unfortunately, we don't have the example, and I think this is pretty clear on how you would put on their presentation. So I think you have all of their information ready to put in your slide presentation. So this is just the format. Okay. And next is their assignment number 10. So here is their assignment number 10 that I am going to post after this class. So please check your Microsoft Teams today. So after the class, I will post it. So this is how assignment number 10 look like. So what you have to use this form, okay, the form that I am going to give it to you. So you would have to indicate their hypothesis number, hypothesis statement, so just like assignment number 8, and then the statistical design. These are from assignment number 8, right, and responsible person. What you will need to do more in assignment number 10 is that the 2 column here, the results and brief conclusion. For example, if you test hypothesis number 1, you have to indicate the result. Either it's partially supported, or not supported. There are 3 options here in each hypothesis, okay? So you have to identify either it's partially supported, or not supported. This is the result that you would have to indicate. And then the brief conclusion. For example, if the result came out that there's only partially support, you have to indicate which one is significant different. For example, for hypothesis number 1, you test if the powerlessness, social isolation, social anxiety, and COVID-19 anxiety affect student well-being. And it turned out that only powerlessness and social isolation significantly affect student well-being. So you have to make a brief conclusion that powerlessness and social isolation affect student well-being. That's it. A very brief conclusion. And then the responsible person is group, right? Don't forget, if it's your hypothesis, you have to put your full name, okay? Your name, not your nickname. Okay? And other hypothesis, you do the same thing. For example, hypothesis number 3, you're using the independent sample t-test, and if your hypothesis is that male and female students have different social isolation, and it came out that there's significantly different between males and female. And if you look at the mean score, you will see that the mean score of the male of their social isolation is higher than female, right? So you can put male higher than female, something like that. Okay, if it's not support, you just say not support. And then you can say there's no difference between this and that. That's it. Any question for assignment number 10?
No.
Okay, I will post assignment number 10 right after. Okay? So you can start doing assignment number 10 and the slide presentation now because it's due next week. And again, you have to submit it to LMS for PowerPoint presentations and assignment number 10. And during our discussion this week, I will allow you to complete your assignment number 10, okay? So that you can use the time during our discussion to complete your assignment number 10 as well as the presentation if you would like. And in order to do assignment number 10, you also have to do not only this table, you also need to do the conclusions and recommendation. For the conclusion, you have to listen carefully. Okay, so conclusion, you have to make their statement, the paragraph for that. What you will need to conclude, you need to conclude the hypothesis that is partially supported or fully supported by the data. For example, in this case, if you're having 3 hypotheses, just example though, like out of 22 hypotheses, only 2 hypotheses that is supported by the data. So you have to conclude about these 2. So you can say that according to the research finding found that the powerlessness and social isolation significantly affect student well-being with so you have to make a conclusion about that hypothesis. that is partially supported or fully supported by the data. You do not need to conclude the hypothesis that is not supported by the data, okay? So you only need to explain the characteristic and the information about the hypothesis that is partially supported or fully supported by the data. If it's not supported, you don't need to conclude it. So you make a conclusion there, only with the hypothesis that is partially supported or fully supported by the data. And then that's gonna align with the recommendation here. So if you look at the conclusion, you will see that what is the gaps, what would you need to recommend or suggest. For example, if you found that if the conclusion, if the hypothesis number, for example, number 1, you found that powerlessness and social isolation significantly affect student well-being. So in the recommendation, you can suggest or recommend some strategy in order to address the social isolation. Some program that can use to address or to bring the student together in order to reduce social isolation or to improve powerlessness. Because you know from the data that powerlessness and social isolation affect student well-being, right? So in the recommendation, it should align with your conclusion. So you can recommend some strategies or some programs in order to address the problem that you found. Okay? Any question?
Okay ครับ
No question?
No ครับ
Okay, so I am going to, do you still remember your date of presentation? Okay, here is the presentation date for you. So section 412, you'll be presenting, section 414. Group 1 and Group 2, please stand by and get ready on September the 17th. You'll be the first 2 group that's presenting at 1:30. Okay? And then on Friday, section 412, Group 1 and Group 2. And Tuesday, section 413, Group 1 and Group 2. And for Group 3, students, section 413, Group 3. You don't need to come on September 22. You need to come on September 23rd at 3 p.m. Okay? So your presentation date would be Wednesday, September 23rd at 3 p.m. Section 413, Group 3. Are you here? Hello? Can you please? Okay. And the rest, please look at your presentation dates and time carefully, and please stand by during that time. Okay. Any other question? Is there any other question that you have?
No,
Okay, so next week, we are going to talk about the last chapters as well as how you would prepare for final exam. Okay, and as I told you, I will post assignment number 10 right after the class today. And if you have any question again, please feel free to text me. Okay, so otherwise, thank you so much for your participation today, and you have a great day. See you. Bye-bye, guys.
Teacher, I have a question.
Yes?
Do we have to join the class during the presentation of the other group?
No, only the group that are presenting will be there.
Okay. Thank you, teacher.
Okay. Thank you. Have a good day, guys.
you.